Hey everybody, it's Travis with the Grown Up Geek, here to talk about the newest science fiction movie on the block, The Martian. Now, for those who don't know, this is a movie adaptation of this book right here, The Martian by Andy Weir. The book's been pretty heavily praised for the past year and a half, and for good reason. It's a riveting rescue story, chock full of cynical humor and super geeky science talk. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend doing so if you're at all interested in light sci-fi. So how's the movie? Well, it's pretty darn good. It captures most of what made the novel so captivating, while making some minor concessions to translate it better to film and appeal to a broader audience. The Martian is something of a cold open. Half of the movie takes place on Mars, but they don't explicitly tell you that right off the bat. It's directed by Ridley Scott, and it's pretty apparent from the opening shot. Those of you who fondly remember Alien will know exactly what I'm talking about. Very few people can open a movie with a sweeping camera shot of an otherworldly landscape like he can. So it takes place in the near future. Humans have sent a few manned missions to Mars at this point, and Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon, he's a botanist on this latest trip. He and his crew are doing their science-y thing on the surface when along comes a dust storm to kind of ruin the day. The team is forced to abandon their posts and hightail it back to their lander. In the chaos, Watney gets struck by debris and sends him flying, knocks out his life monitoring equipment, so his team think he's dead, and they leave him while they head back home. Lo and behold, Watney doesn't die on Mars. He's left to figure out A, how to let NASA know he's still there, and B, how to stay alive in the approximately 4 years it's going to take for the next planned Mars mission to get to him. This is where the science part comes in. One of the things that makes The Martian so interesting, he's a botanist, but he's also an astronaut, and they make it pretty clear right off the bat that he's extremely intelligent. Now, the book, the book's filled cover to cover with detailed scientific descriptions about, everything about how he solves various problems that come up along the way. These wouldn't really work in film environment too well, so there's not a whole lot of that you'll see on the screen. That said, they still do a good job of making it clear Mark has to basically become a master life hacker to make it out there. The other half of the movie involves the scientists at NASA and JPL frantically pulling out all the stops to launch a rescue mission before Watney starves up there. Another thing the movie does really well, it conveys a level of urgency that everyone's feeling back on Earth. Between deciding whether or not to tell Watney's team they left him behind, calculating the timeline, and making really tough decisions about what corners to cut to get it all done in time. Everybody is super stressed out about it. Turns out, launching a trip to Mars is really, really hard. It normally takes years of planning, building, testing, but they have to do it in a much shorter span. In the meantime, Watney's all alone up on Mars, left not just to fend for himself, but also to keep himself entertained and kind of from going crazy. The other thing that makes The Martian so great is Watney's sense of humor in dealing with the whole debacle. He may be a scientist, but he's also extremely relatable. Pretty much all of his communication that's not directly toward, NASA is him leaving journal entries. They're filled with jokes, cursing, and down-to-earth, conversational tones. In the book, this breaks up the science talk really nicely. For example, when he's calculating how long it'll take him to, drive his rover over the site of a previous Mars landing, he decides to come up with a new scientific term to describe the unit of measurement he's come up with. But because he can't think of anything better, he calls it a pirate ninja. And this kind of thing would be pretty easy to translate to film, but they chose to actually cut down on the language and the humor of the film to get it down to a PG-13. In my opinion, that's a little disappointing, but understandable. Damon doesn't display quite the level of irreverence that Watney in book form does, but he still makes the character's joking personality shine through. The way in which he complains about having no music to listen to other than the disco that his captain brought with her, or telling us that the best thing about poking a hole in his glove in space is that he'll be able to fly around like Iron Man. It just reinforces Watney as a regular guy who you really want to root for, and that kind of speaks to the backbone of where The Martian ends up going. It still doesn't fully touch on as much as I was hoping for, like what this kind of experience does to a person. Instead, they focus more on the spirit of the human condition in terms of the resources spent for the sake of one person. Endless hours of work and sleepless nights, Millions of dollars of technology, worldly PR coverage. It really speaks to the value of the human life and lengths we as a people are willing to go to for that. And it's pretty inspiring and thought-provoking. All in all, The Martian as a film isn't as heavy on the technical jargon and dials down the vulgarity level slightly from the book, but it still stands on its own. The cuts and changes they made were smart and minor enough that it didn't hurt the overarching themes. The standard caveat of the book is always better certainly applies here, but whether you're a fan of the book looking for an exciting film adaptation, or have never heard of the book and just want a good sci-fi blockbuster with a gratuitous shot of Matt Damon's butt, this one's definitely worth your time and money. I'd love to hear what you guys thought of the movie or even the book. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think I'm an idiot for liking it as much as I do? Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, or the comments below and let us know. For the Grown Up Geek, I'm Travis. See y'all again soon.